Believe it or not, Apex Legends released about 5 years ago in February of 2019. Without a shadow of a doubt, Apex has since become one of the best battle royale games, even FPS games of all time. The game has been praised by players and pros alike for its fluid and tight movement as well as the impressive gunplay, which isn't really surprising at all considering that the same studio that made Titanfall made Apex Legends. But this video isn't about Titanfall. I'm still working on my Titanfall video, so that will be here another time. Now, some of you guys may remember just how legendary the release of Apex Legends was. Unlike most AAA games nowadays, Apex Legends didn't spend millions of dollars in a marketing campaign. Instead, they teased the game with a simple background of the game and a countdown. Because of the insane reputation that Titanfall had, everyone, and I mean everyone, was excited to see what the devs over at Respawn would bring into the battle royale market. And it worked. In 2019, just as Fortnite was at its peak, many big streamers immediately hopped on Apex Legends to check it out, and that essentially became the game's promotion and marketing campaign. Apex Legends used the reputation of Titanfall as one of the best FPS games of all time, and the then hype around battle royale games to fuel interest in this game's launch, and as a result, Apex Legends managed to hit 10 million players in just 3 days. But since we're just about to head into 2024, which will mark 5 years since Apex dropped, I want to take a look at the progression of Apex Legends since it initially dropped. How far has Apex Legends come since then? Is the game in a better state? And also, what does the future of Apex Legends actually look like? Now, if I'm being honest, I kinda checked out of Apex in season 12, or was it season 13? Or maybe even season 14, I don't know. I could feel my mental health deteriorating. I could feel it, like I could feel it. Somewhere in the past year, I definitely stopped playing Apex Legends nearly as much as I used to. And that's actually a point I definitely do want to touch on in this video, because Apex has had 19 official seasons, and somewhere all of those seasons became jumbled up together, making it very difficult to distinguish between each season from the next. But I'll touch on that point a little bit later on in this video. Perhaps the most impressive thing that Apex Legends has done is it's managed to survive for 5 years, first of all. In an era where FPS games are released and die within a matter of days and weeks. Hyperscape. The mere fact that Apex has been able to stay relevant for so long is commendable in itself. So I have to give the teams over at Respawn and EA their props for that. That's commendable, that's commendable. But as with any live service game, there's been a lot of change in discourse and opinion around Apex Legends ever since its initial release. Some players believe that the game has taken a step back and is currently on the decline, which actually isn't far-fetched considering the current statistics of Apex, as well as new games giving Apex more competition. But there are also players who believe the game has come a very, very long way. So with that said, I want to tackle that question in today's video. After 5 years, how has Apex Legends changed since its launch? First up, let's talk about the gameplay in Apex Legends, which has always been one of the biggest draws to the game. As I previously mentioned, the same studio that made the Titanfall games also made Apex, so the same arcadey, fast-paced, fluid gameplay can also be seen in Apex Legends. 5 years later, the gameplay still feels just as fun and engaging as it did when it first launched. Some may argue it even feels better due to the many updates and additions that have been added to the game since then. For example, let's take a look at the character roster in Apex, or the official term for the characters, the Legends. Apex Legends launched with only 8 Legends, and at present day, the game now boasts an impressive roster of 24 playable Legends, 3 times the amount of Legends that the game launched with. Compared to the Legends that were playable at launch, a lot of these new characters have a lot more intricate and strategic abilities. Interestingly enough, this has always been a topic of discussion in the Apex Legends community. The players have always questioned why certain Legends at launch had relatively simple abilities compared to the complex abilities that some Legends received later down the line. For example, Legends like Bloodhound, Wraith, and Octane all were playable at launch. Bloodhound has a tactical ability that temporarily gives them wall hacks, while a legend like Seer launched with an ability in the same slot that allowed him to see where enemies are at through walls and even temporarily disable enemies' ability to revive and even use their own abilities. Wraith's passive ability is simply a voice quip that warns the player if an enemy is looking in their direction.
You're in view of the enemy.
I have a feeling someone's watching us.
Pretty simple, right? While Revenant's current passive allows him to highlight nearby enemies who are at low health, it gives them increased crouch walking speed and even increased climbing speed and range. The complexity of legend abilities at present day compared to the early days of Apex isn't a bad thing though. It just perfectly shows how much legend design has changed since the days of the original characters. The current legend roster in Apex has gone through several tweaks and rebalancing, but one thing is for sure. Players now have a much higher chance of finding a legend that perfectly suits their playstyle, almost as if it was tailor-made for them. That's one area where Apex has continued to shine. The amount of ways you can play is truly impressive. Whether you want to be aggressive, passive, or even a mix of both, there will almost always be a legend that can meet your needs. There really isn't any way to tell you guys just how fun it feels to play different legends in this game. The feeling of grappling into a gunfight with Pathfinder and shotgunning someone straight to their face, or using a Horizon ultimate and sucking everyone in. Wait, pause. Sucking everyone with a black hole ultimate is unmatched. Now while games like Overwatch and the finals offer different characters and playstyles, there's just something very specific and unique about the scale at which Apex Legends actually achieves this consistently. But it isn't just the Legends that saw a big upgrade since the game initially launched. Since its launch, Apex has added 4 new maps and 11 new weapons. Kings Canyon has always been the OG map in Apex, considering it was the map that the game initially launched with, but now that map has seen several variations and 4 new maps have also been added in: World's Edge, Olympus, Storm Point, and Broken Moon. While some of these maps may not be loved by the entire community, they each offer a very specific experience, giving players a new way to play the game every single time they hop on. Personally for me, my favorite maps in this game are World's Edge and Olympus, but if you ask around the community, trust, you'll find a variety of different answers. And this just shows that the devs did a very good job at trying to cater to the community at large. As a matter of fact, if you do still play Apex, leave your favorite map in the comment section down below. Let's look at this as a bit of an experiment. I could almost guarantee you guys that the answers are going to be different across the board, so leave your comments down below. The weapon pool in Apex Legends has also seen a drastic overhaul. Players who love fast-paced action now have a lot more weapons at their disposal, like the Volt SMG, the Car SMG, and even the Mastiff shotgun, all of which weren't playable at the game's initial launch. Players who prefer a laid-back playstyle can now depend on the Charge Rifle, the Sentinel Sniper Rifle, the Butcher Compound Bow, or even the 30-30 Repeater. Simply put, the game now has a lot more customization compared to when it first released. Over the years, Apex has also seen some pretty big additions like private matches and a new playlist mode that allows players to jump into Team Deathmatch, Control, and even a variation of the now iconic Call of Duty game mode, Gun Game. So you don't always have to play ranked or the Battle Royale mode if you want to actually play Apex. You can now have a variety of different modes to jump into. But as much as Apex Legends has progressed over the years, there also have been some setbacks that the community definitely won't hesitate to bring up. Microtransactions, cosmetic items, and loot boxes have been the bane of live service games for years and years. And unfortunately, Apex Legends seems to have fallen somewhat victim to this plague. The game is developed by EA first of all, the same studio that once had the now infamous loot box scandal with Star Wars Battlefront 2 a couple of years ago. And if you remember how big that was, it was big. It was really big. So it isn't any surprise that Apex also suffers from this. One of the biggest complaints that players currently have about Apex is the lack of true content and the abundance of cash grab events currently known as collection events. For example, the most sought after, the most wanted cosmetic item in Apex is an heirloom. Almost every single character has one, and these items usually drop alongside collection events. These heirlooms are character-specific melee weapons that usually have great design and are almost like a crowning trophy of achievement for a specific character. A Wraith main needs to have the Wraith heirloom. A Horizon main needs to have the Horizon heirloom. A Pathfinder main needs to have a Pathfinder heirloom, and so on and so forth. The problem is, the drop rate for these items are terribly low, and if you want to guarantee yourself an heirloom, you'll have to spend $160 every collection event. Yes, you heard that right. $160 for an in-game item for a free-to-play game. Even if you don't spend that money, the chances of one randomly dropping in an Apex pack, as I said, is very low. So players often feel slighted by the developers of the game because there seems to be no shortage of these cash grab events, while there always seems to be a lack of new content, general game and server fixes, and things to keep the players interested. Funny enough, this past year was actually one of the slowest years for Apex Legends, essentially because of this fact. The Steam numbers have been dropping, views on various platforms have been dropping as well, but hey, at least Apex was one of the highest earning games on Steam, right? right? But in all seriousness, right, monetization and a focus on money-making incentives has been one of the biggest issues that Apex Legends has had to deal with. Even though the game has seen massive growth over the years and the potential to grow even more, many players often wonder if all of that potential will be squandered if the game continues to prioritize profit over a fun experience for its dedicated players. But it's not all bad news. This game has built one of the most dedicated and loyal fan bases, partly because there simply isn't any other game currently out that can effectively mimic what Apex Legends does. Many games have tried, and many games have failed. The core gameplay mechanics are just too good. The game feels just as intuitive as it did when it launched almost 5 years ago. But 2024 is going to be a very definitive year in Apex Legends' life cycle. With games like the finals attracting many of its players, it's only a matter of time before the competition gets very steep and players are forced to play different games. But even if everything goes wrong for Apex Legends, this game will always go down as one of the best Battle Royale games and FPS games of all time. 5 years later, the game still has a dedicated fan base, it still boasts over 100k concurrent players on Steam, and of course it's still making a lot of money. The only real question is, can Apex Legends survive another 5 years?